I'd love for you to have to click on this video and me tell you that everything about Hawaii is great, living in Hawaii is great, and there's no cons to it. But that is just not the case. Look, I was raised in Hawaii. I wasn't born, but I was raised in Hawaii, and I've also moved here a few times, so you may be able to relate to me in this video. All right, in this video, we're actually going to be talking about the pros and the cons, my top 5 pros and cons of living in Hawaii, what it's really like, and we're going to get after it right now. What's going on? My name is Ryan Strong. I'm a real estate agent out here in Hawaii, and on this channel, if you're new here, this channel is all about living in Hawaii, what it's like to eat, sleep, play, breathe, what it's really like to live in Hawaii. If you're not new here, welcome back to another video. Make sure you all hit the like button. It helps anybody else looking for this information find this video. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and that notification bell so that you get notified every time that I upload a new video on this channel. And look, we get so many people reaching out if they're thinking about moving to Hawaii or already know that they're making the move to Hawaii and looking for more information or somebody to help them find where it is that they may want to live, you can reach out. We absolutely love it. You can reach out, you can send us a text, you can send us an email, you can give us a call, you can schedule your own Zoom with us down in the description below. However you want to get a hold of us, we got your back when moving to Hawaii. Now, our first pro may seem just a little bit obvious, but one of the biggest pros of living in Hawaii is the beaches. Go figure, right? The beaches. So here in the islands, we have some of the most beautiful beaches in the world, but it's not just like the beach, right? I mean, there's coastal states all around the United States that have beaches, but what is it about Hawaii's beaches? Well, there's some of the most scenic and iconic beaches that you've seen in movies, pictures, all this stuff, Instagram, all around the world. Some of these beaches get known to be some of the top beaches in the world because when you're living here, it's the access to the beaches, okay? And what I mean by that is no matter where you live, and it's all relative, but no matter where you live, beaches just like this one behind me are within about a 20 to 25 minute drive, all right? If you're living in central Oahu, which is going to be like your Mililani, Wahiawa area, and you can drive 25 minutes north, you can drive 25 minutes south, or you can head a little bit further east, wherever it is you want to go. If you're already living somewhere, which like I do, right, the beach is literally 5 to 10 minute walk down the road, right? And so access to the beaches when you're living in Hawaii is really what's great. And then just to really discover them all. And what I mean by this, and I was talking to another client about this, is these beaches right here are not all the same. So you could be on the west side of the island at one beach and drive over to the east side of the island, and the sand is completely different. The reef in the water is different, whether there is or isn't reef, right? The tide, the waves, right? And so one of the cool things about Hawaii too, that you don't get in a lot of other places, is the surf report, right? We have a daily surf report that's just part of the news broadcast, which is cool. You can look it up online and stuff if you're into surfing, okay? But the beach and the access to the beach is one of the biggest pros of living in Hawaii. Diving into our first con, and these are in no particular order, but Hawaii is far from everything, okay? And this sounds like another obvious one, but I'm going to dive into a little bit more of what that means. But we are far from everything. Everything or a lot of things have to be shipped here, which can affect, goods and cost of goods and supply and demand and those types of things. That's one of the reasons being far from everything. But the other part may be your family, okay? A lot of times, especially I talk to a lot of military service members, but a lot of times people will move out here and it sounds nice, right? It sounds nice. Oh, we're going to move to Hawaii. And then your family's like, oh, we've been dying to get to Hawaii. Now you've given us a reason to come visit, and we'd love to visit all the time, and this, and that. And it doesn't end up happening, okay? You're far away from everybody and everything out here in the islands in the Pacific Ocean. And then when people start to look at, oh, we want to come visit all the time, and you look at the cost and the time of travel and things like that, and the days and the expenses, it starts to add up, and then it just doesn't happen as much as people would like to think that it does, okay? And so even not so much right now. It's actually funny, the airline ticket prices aren't that bad right now, but on a typically speaking anyway, it used to cost you an arm and a leg just to get here, right? And even for those of us that do live here, we know that it's vice versa. It costs us an arm and a leg to get to where it is that we want to go vacation. That's just to get on the plane. not counting where it is that you might be staying, hotel, Airbnb, whatever that is, right? So Hawaii being far from everything, being secluded, you're not near everything. Your family may not come and visit you as much as they say or as much as you would like. So being far from everything is sort of a con, depending on who you are. Maybe you do want to be away from everybody and everything, and that's one of the main reasons you came out here, right? So, but for me, and I have family on the East Coast, I have family in New Mexico, I have family in California and Texas, and the trip to Hawaii just doesn't happen as much. And the number of people that I talk to say the same thing. So that's going to be our first con of living in Hawaii. Pro number 2 of living in Hawaii is going to be the weather. All right, and here we go. Ryan, you're killing me with the obvious stuff, but it's true. Right, a lot of people would love to get away from the cold. I know I did, right? And I come from the South and the Southeast, and I'm not a person that does well in the winter, especially when it gets below 40, 50 even, right? But when it gets down to those low temperatures and those freezing temperatures, I'm useless. I don't want to do anything, and I'm useless. So living in Hawaii, right, or even going to Costco. We go to Costco and we go to the cooler section where the fruits and stuff are, and you got to go inside, right? And I'm like, I'm freezing, right? And my kids are like, oh, Dad, it's cold. I'm like, I know, man, we got to get out of here. That's why we live in Hawaii. But yeah, the weather is another obvious one. A lot of people move out here to get away from the cold. They don't want to be cold anymore. They want to have that tropical weather year round, which ties into the beaches, right? Which was our first pro. Okay, it ties into the beaches, having the beautiful weather that lets you go to the beach year round, right? Going and just chilling at the beach, going surfing year round, those types of things, being in the water year round. So the weather really is a big pro out here. In the winter months, it doesn't really get below, or it will get below the 60s. It'll get into the high 50s, but that's like late at night, early in the morning type of weather. A lot of you may not stay up that late or get up that early to experience that weather. And so you'll maybe start your day in the mid 60s, and then it's going to get up into the 70s, probably low 80s, which is kind of the months that we're in right now. And heading into, and then it'll start to warm back up. But that's about what you can expect for the weather. I've had people in the comments, it doesn't get in the 50s. Well, like I said, some of you may not get up that early or stay up that late to experience that weather, right? And it depends. If you're by the ocean, like being in the wintertime and being near the ocean and that breeze coming in, it gets chilly, it gets cold. And this is something that you'll get acclimated to. You'll be coming from a northern state and you're like, oh, it's 15 degrees here. I can't wait to be in Hawaii. And then you get acclimated to it. Your body starts to adjust, and then all of a sudden, what the weather I was just talking about, 65 degrees, is chilly to you and it's cold to you, and you're putting on a hoodie in 65 degrees because you've been here 2 to 3 years now and you're acclimated, right? So these things start to happen and you start to change. Your body starts to change. But the weather is a huge pro for living in Hawaii. Con number 2 is going to be the roads, okay? And I feel like everybody that I talk to from all over the United States says their roads are terrible. Well, let me tell you, they're terrible out here too. All right, I've never, I don't know, maybe, actually the roads in Vegas weren't terrible now that I think about it when we were driving around Vegas. But again, the roads out here, potholes galore. I don't know what it is. It's the heat, it's the salt water in the air, right? It's the water everywhere. Coming in, especially Hawaii's drainage system, when we get a ton of rain and the roads kind of get over flooded, it just creates massive amount of potholes everywhere. You're driving and you just hit this massive pothole and you feel like you just destroyed your car and you're like, oh my God. But the roads out here, they're not great. I was just helping a client. We were driving around, and we just driving around Mililani, actually, one of the top areas that people love to look for a home in, and driving around Mililani, just ba-boom, 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 and we're making a turn, and then ba-boom, like, my God, like, the potholes here just is crazy. So the roads here aren't any better. If you're expecting to come here and have some nicely paved roads all around the island, not going to happen. And so if you're bringing your nice little sports car here, right, and you got, you're sitting low to the ground, and you got your, I forget the name of the tires, the high profile tires or something like that, where you've only got like that much tire between your, your rim and stuff. So those are the things you're going to want to look out for. This could really affect something like that. If you got a nice truck or big truck or SUV or a regular car, don't worry too much, but it's crazy. Even driving on the roads. This was when I was in college. I was driving from school. It was our lunch break, and I was going to go to Whole Foods and get me a nice burrito. And I'm driving up to Whole Foods, and I hear this like patink noise. And I didn't know what happened because my car didn't sync, like I got a flat tire, and the rest of my ride, everything ting, 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 like that. And what I actually had was I had a screw that threaded through my tire. A screw, not a nail, a screw. It somehow shot through and threaded my tire like that. So the tire didn't go flat, and every time that rotated around, it was ting, 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 right? So that was a bit crazy. But yeah, the roads out here are not the best, and I just don't want you to expect that they are. Pro number 3 is going to be the culture in Hawaii. This is something I think I probably hit on just about every video, and that's because I love it. I love the culture out here. Again, I wasn't born here, but I was raised here. I moved here as a young kid, and then raised here in a very diverse culture, and I couldn't be more grateful for the opportunity that I had when I was a young kid to do that, to grow up here and to experience the things that I've experienced. And you know, and I go back and I think about what I moved away from, what I moved into, and how grateful I am. And I'm grateful that my kids are going to be able to experience something like that too. So it's the people, it's the very diverse culture. Hawaii is a melting pot, okay? People from all over the world. All over the world, right? Countries from all around are here in Hawaii, and it's just a melting pot of different cultures that you get to experience, especially, you know, when your young kids start making friends and those types of things, and then you get to meet their parents, and then you guys become friends, and however it is that you make friends, whether it is at work, but you get to experience a lot of different cultures from all around the world, and that's something that I really love. I love to get to know people and what their life was like and how they live and those types of things. So experiencing the very diverse culture. The other thing about the culture out here is the aloha spirit. This is another thing that I've hit on quite a few times in a few videos, but the aloha spirit out here is something that is real, and it definitely needs to be spread, okay? What I mean by that is treat people with respect and kindness, okay? Be kind. Again, people here from all over the world. You never know what somebody has been through, what somebody's doing now. You never know why or what, right? So treat people with respect and just be kind. It doesn't kill you to be kind, right? So that is the aloha spirit, right? And a lot of times when you're driving, right? Here we go with the roads again, right? No, but when you're driving, this is something that is very noticeable. People aren't me, I've got to get to where I need to go. I don't care who else is on the road, that type of stuff. When you're driving, that's one of the most times that I notice it the most, I guess, is people, you know, you're sitting there trying to make that left turn into double lane traffic, and then somebody will stop and they'll kind of like get the rest of traffic to stop just to let you go and get you out into traffic and what you need to do. So driving is one of the times that I really like, you know what, I've been on the mainland and I've driven in places like, you know, Chicago, California, Florida, and if you don't hit the gas as soon as that light turned green, the person behind you is just slamming their horn, bang, 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 go. Here in Hawaii, not like that. You could sit there at the whole light and the whole green light could go through and the person behind you probably won't say anything. The aloha spirit is real out here. Being kind, respecting others, and understanding that we all come from different walks of life. So that's one of the things that I'm glad I got to experience and that my kids are going to get to experience as well. Our next con is back to the roads and back to traffic. And I just talked about the aloha spirit, right? And people letting you through. But that doesn't mean there aren't a ton of cars on the road. And Hawaii does have a really bad traffic problem. And this is something that we used to rank up there with LA and New York and some of those areas as having some of the worst traffic. It's coming from Waikiki or Honolulu, east to west, west to east. And so what happens is a lot of people work in Honolulu, downtown Honolulu and Waikiki, but they live in the suburbs outside of the city. And so everybody, right, just like these other big cities, everybody's commuting to the hub to work at certain times of the day, and then everybody's leaving at the same time, right? So we get these massive congestions of traffic. So typically what that's like is a lot of people who live out in the west side, right? Kapolei, Eva Beach, they're getting on H1, which is our main freeway that heads from west to east, east to west, towards the southern portion of the island. And a lot of people at around, 5:30, 6 a.m. ish, depending, right, are getting on H1 and heading east to work, right, west to east. and a lot of people will get off around 3 or 4. Typically around 3:30-ish is when you're going to notice that the congestion is heavy, especially if you put it in your map and you notice the red line pop up, right? The red line on your map when you're looking at directions means there's traffic, typically. So around 3:30 or 4 in the afternoon is when it starts, or it's going to get started. And if you're heading from east to west, sorry, looking at the camera, I don't know if my east and west is correct, but east to west, and then around that time, that's when you're going to notice the congestion and the longer travel times. So traffic here gets pretty bad, again, depending on the time of the day, where it is that you work, and those types of things. But it is a problem, and a lot of people do complain about it. And a lot of us will plan our days around it. So for me, if I've got to go to showings on the east side, or if I have appointments on the east side because I live more on the west, then I try to plan those around either before traffic is going to hit on the times that I told you, or after. So a lot of us in Hawaii do plan our days specifically around it if we can. So traffic is a problem. The fourth pro of this video is our outdoor activities. Hawaii is full of outdoor activities and adventures. It's almost like you just could never run out, right? There's so many things, and every time you go to the beach, the waves could be different, right? All these things. So there's so many outdoor activities, from the hiking to the surfing to the beach to the waterfalls. Just so many adventures, and because we're in the island, right? They're different all around the island. There's different things and different ways of experiencing things. So you're like, oh, I've been hiking, but what mountain did you hike? What hiking trail was it? What side of the island was it on? What time of day did you do it, right? And so, for instance, let's say you were doing the Lani Kai pillbox. If you were doing the Lani Kai pillbox, which, for example, the pillbox means these were basically bunkers during wartime, but now they're called pillboxes. If you were doing the Lani Kai pillbox over there in Kailua, right, versus doing the Maili pillbox hike over on the west side, right, it's going to be a totally different experience with the heat, the weather, the time of day. If you do sunsets in the west, and so if you do the Maili pillbox around sunset time, you're going to see one of the best sunsets. And again, you do all your hiking at your own risk. I'm not recommending anything, but if you do the Maili pillbox hike around sunset, you're going to experience a beautiful sunset, especially if you do it in sort of the fall winter time in whale season. You're going to see some whales too up there. So pretty cool stuff versus doing it on Lani Kai, right? So again, 2 hikes up into the mountains and into pillboxes, but different experiences. The beaches, again, I've already talked about the beaches and how they can differ around the island, but there's so many outdoor activities. And then even just with your family or living here, right, you're going to notice a lot more people outside, a lot more people outside running, a lot more people outside walking their dogs, outside with their kids at the parks, playing sports, a lot more people outside because it is a more friendly family communities, and the weather just really allows it, right? And so that's one of the biggest pros of living in Hawaii for me and my family, right, is the outdoor activities, and my kids are able to get out and play sports, you know, pretty much all year round. So being outdoor activities, taking them to the beach, right? We can go to the beach in December, right? Outdoor activities, one of the biggest pros of living in Hawaii. For our fourth con, it's going to be the cost of living. And this is something that you've probably seen somewhere if you haven't watched my cost of living video, but you've seen it somewhere or you've heard, right? The cost of living out here can be crazy. So mainly dealing with home prices, but this also does affect gas, groceries, and other regular costs of living, okay? Gas prices right now, majority of them are above $4 a gallon at this time of November of 2021, and we'll see how those fluctuate. But you got to think in terms of majority from where we're at now. And again, not proud of this. And I wish we had more of our own sustainable, especially agriculture. But a lot of goods are shipped into Hawaii. And when goods are shipped here, somebody's got to pay for that, right? And then when they actually get to the store, they got to mark up to cover those shipping costs. And somebody's got to make a profit, right? That's how it's business and economics, right? So out here, things get to be more expensive. And Oahu typically serves as that main hub. And then items that come to Oahu then disperse out to the other islands, and then on the other islands things can get pretty expensive as well, when we're talking about eggs, milk, bread, all these regular things that you regularly consume, or you may not, but as a person and as a family. So cost of living is pretty expensive, a lot of times comparable to those cities of San Francisco and LA when we talk about cost of living, or California for the most part, right, or on the coastal California. but it's pretty comparable to those areas and those cities, especially when we're talking about rent, if you're renting, right, or if you're buying a home and the home prices. Now, wages typically, you would assume, fluctuate with the cost of living, but that's not always the case when we're talking about minimum wage and those types of things. So a lot of people out here do work multiple jobs just to really, keep up because of the cost, right? It is expensive, especially if you have a large family. It is expensive out here. So I have a family, right? My wife and 2 kids. And it's pretty expensive. It can get costly when we make our Costco trips and Safeway trips and Foodland trips. It does get pretty expensive. When we talk about home prices, these always fluctuate. So out, about, or around, and I do show data on this channel. I'll pull up the MLS and I'll show you the actual data from the MLS and those types of things. But because these numbers always fluctuate with the market, it's always market dependent. So right now, as of right now, our median single family home price is above $1 million for single family homes, detached single family homes. And that really does depend on the area. Okay, now that does not mean that you're going to have to pay $1 million for a single family home. There are areas where it is less than $1 million, but we're on a real estate trend where it's constantly going up. Again, I'm a real estate agent, and so I can get into the MLS and look at the actual data, the sales, and all these things. It really depends area by area. Okay. Now, rent, the average rent is above $2,300, but again, these all fluctuate, market dependent. Now, does that mean you're going to be paying $2,300 for rent? Not necessarily. Depends on your needs, your lifestyle, and size of the home. But again, cost of living, comparable to more of those of coastal California, those cities, San Fran, LA, those types of things. It's really expensive out here, depending on where you shop and your lifestyle and your needs. Our last pro for this video is going to be the family-friendly communities. This is something that I absolutely love. I mentioned that I have a wife and 2 boys, and so I love being in a family-friendly community and those things that make you feel safe, the sports, the people outside walking their dogs. You see the moms, there's a group of moms that goes around in the morning, then it's like 10 of them pushing their stroller. They go to a park, they exercise together. Pretty cool stuff, but that's the stuff that you see that makes you feel safe in these communities and lets you know, like, okay, this is cool. There's kids outside, there's nothing to really worry about. And Hawaii has a lot of those, okay? There's a lot of parks. You're gonna see a lot of outdoor sports, a lot of outdoor activities, which we mentioned earlier. So a lot of family-friendly communities here in the islands, especially to, raise your kids and be okay with them being outside. Now, every place does have their ghettos. That's not what this video is about, but every place does, and we have ours out here too. But for the most part, Hawaii generally has a lot of that's a tongue twister, family-friendly communities, and that's something that I think you can appreciate too. Our last con for this video is going to be space, okay? This kind of ties into the cost of living in the real estate, but just sort of to manage your expectations out here. You're going to get less space for more money, right? You may be coming from a place like Texas, Florida, Midwest, some area on the mainland where you can get, an acre for a lot less money. Out here, you've got to understand, because Hawaii is very compact, we are it can be pretty congested, and we're trying to fit a lot of things into a tiny space, okay? And so therefore that ties into homes, all right? The condos in Waikiki, if you're looking to go buy a condo, expect those condos to be fairly small depending on the price, right? But in general, you're going to be paying more for less, right? You're going to be paying more, which ties into our cost of living and the prices of homes, for a little bit less space. Big yards and all that, it's hard to find, especially for the right price. So space, right? There's not a lot of it. We only have so much island, and they're not making more island, right? So it's starting to get more and more expensive with that, and there's just not a lot left of it. So that is something to think about when it comes to con of being in Hawaii. That's gonna do it for my top 5 pros and cons of living in Hawaii. And if, again, you're thinking about moving out to Hawaii, you've got to reach out. You can shoot us a text, send us an email, schedule your own Zoom down in the description below. However you want to get a hold of us, we absolutely love it, and we got your back when moving to Hawaii. I got tons of other videos on this channel that have vlog tours, community vlog tours, showing you what these communities are like, tons of playlists about each and every one of these communities, and that's going to start popping up for you right now.